Hello, folks. Welcome to Between Awesome and Disaster. This is your host, Will Carey. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Hope you're having an excellent holiday season. It is the second week of December when I'm recording this intro, and due to a recent influx of packages into the apartment here where I do the show, I'm going to be recording the interviews that I do here at my apartment in my living room, and that's normally I might sound like I'm complaining, but I'm not, because that means all my guests who come to the house through the month of December will be treated to an interview next to my Christmas tree that my fiance and I picked up last Friday from when I'm recording this. That would have been Friday the 6th. So it's a nice festive touch to my holiday season podcasting here. My guest on the show today is comedian Tommy McNamara. Tommy is also one of the co-hosts of the very popular podcast Stand By Your Band. If you are a regular listener to that show, I often chime in with my thoughts on certain bands. Usually like the rock bands and the new metal bands from like the early 2000s are the artists I tend to chime in on. And I was listening to their show to kind of get ready for this interview today, and I went back and listened to their episode they did on Stain with comedian Shane Torres, and they read one of my comments where I was talking about the song Epiphany. So I imagine music is going to come up a lot on this chat today. Music and comedy, which are two things that I love chatting about. And Tommy will be on his way shortly, and we'll see where this interview goes. This is the fun thing about the show, is when I record these before the interview happens, I have no idea what happened. It could have gotten super crazy. I mean, probably not, because I'm not really that type of a person. But who knows? Maybe you skipped ahead of this and already listened to the interview, so you know more than me. That's pretty crazy, because time is kind of like an abstract concept sometimes. But before I get into this, I want to let you guys know, in addition to Stand By Your Band, Tommy's podcast that he does with Tom Takar, which is available wherever you get your podcast, Tommy McNamara's debut comedy album, Who's Tommy, is officially released as of this recording. So you can listen to it wherever you get your comedy albums or your music. You can, of course, stream it on all the platforms, and you could also give it a download if you want. It's I was listening to today. It's very funny, and because I don't really know Tommy super well, I know Tom a little bit better. This will be kind of an interesting get-to-know-you kind of podcast, because I know him through the posts about his show, and I know him through his stand-up, and we will see where this goes. But yes, you can get Tommy McNamara's debut album, Who's Tommy, wherever you get your comedy albums. And if you enjoyed this show and feel like you want to share it with somebody else, we're available wherever you get your podcasts. If you listen to us on Apple, if you would be so kind as to leave us a 5-star review and rating and a review, that helps other people find the show, and I personally really appreciate it. And you can follow me on Twitter at Comic Will Carey. And 'tis the season to still be doing some great comedy, music-centric podcasting here at Between Awesome and Disaster. So thank you guys all so much for being here. And let's go to my chat with comedian Tommy McNamara. Sounding good, Tommy McNamara. Thanks.
All right.
I feel like we know each other, but I don't really think we've really ever met, have we?
I was wondering about that, honestly. Yeah.
Because we've messaged before about like shows and like the podcasts and stuff, but I feel like I know Tom maybe a little bit better. Your co-host. But I like you on the podcast. I realized I feel like I might be much older than you than I thought originally.
So I am 29.
You're 29. Okay, so not as big as I thought. I'm 33.
Oh, yeah.
But I guess because when I think of it, I measure like age. The greatest delineation of age for me is music and like who's heard of what bands. Mm-hmm. So like I was really enjoying everyone freaking out about Billie Eilish, like not knowing
Van Halen, yeah.
Van Halen or all these other bands, or like on Seth Meyers, like what does millennial writer Karen know? Mm-hmm. But it's just it amuses to me, but because like I know I can name like one Billie Eilish song and I can name like 3 Van Halen songs.
Yep. Yeah.
But you're but I was listening to your album earlier today, and you're very funny on that, and I
Thank you.
And I love the musical second half of your record. So you do, if for anyone who hasn't listened to it yet, it's available now. You did your entire set, you did your entire album recording, and then you did a musical version of the album.
Yes. So I had this idea where I wanted to structure it basically where the second half of it is a rock opera based on the first half. And it was an idea I had for a while before I actually sat down and wrote it, because it's very nerve-wracking to write comedic music in any way, just because bad comedic music is so embarrassing. And I was so worried about it that it took me forever to finally be like, okay, I need to have an album recording date for me to really sit down and do this.
Right.
But then I ended up being really happy with how it turned out. And part of the reason I wanted to do it is because I was part of the album's title, which is "Who's Tommy?" A joke on the rock
on
opera.
the rock opera Tommy
by the Who, which my dad claims I was partially named after because he loves the Who. But I was always kind of fascinated with the concept of rock operas and wanted to have one of my own.
Oh, 100%. Like I'm trying to, like, the whole concept of it is like trying to. I don't know if it was originally created as a way to try to make musicals edgy and cool back in like the 70s, but it didn't exactly work, but I like rock operas anyway. I like that kind of.
They're all very
anyway.
silly. And they come from either angle, where it's the Andrew Lloyd Webber, Jesus Christ Superstar side, or a band like the Who doing a concept album side. Either way, it always just ends up a little.
Yeah, I liked American Idiot though. I never saw it on stage, but I liked the idea behind that album. I thought that was pretty well conceptualized, because there's a tendency that they could turn really ridiculous really quickly, like Rick Wakeman doing like an ice ballet of King Arthur.
I didn't know about that. Wow.
Oh yeah, it ran 3 performances. They did an ice ballet of King Arthur.
Wow.
or that Kiss album. I think it's Elder Scrolls or something like that, like some kind of like MMORPG sounding name.
Oh yeah.
It's interesting to me. I don't know if you've ever discussed this on your show. It's interesting to me how relatively tame music that was considered very edgy and dangerous years ago is. Like, people were firebombing Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yeah, that is wild.
Like, people were like setting theaters on fire. over the Jesus musical,
I think of that as like my fun family tradition that we would watch Jesus Christ Superstar every Easter. But it's funny that it was so inflammatory at any time. Like, it just seems so silly.
Yeah, or the Happy Days, the original Happy Days theme song, the Rock Around the Clock, that caused like a riot.
Really?
at a show. Yeah, and like, to me, that's like children's music, basically.
Yeah.
Like, even I've noticed it happening with like stuff I like too. I don't know. Have you covered lots of punk on Stand By Your Band
No, we
yet?
haven't really done any punk, honestly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm hoping I can help fix that, because that's sort of my wheelhouse.
For sure.
So I remember, and I would love to kind of touch on your musical history also, because I feel like we have that in common. I remember when I was in high school, Rancid were like the edgy. That's what like the real punks listened to. And Rancid now, I'm like, yeah, it's Rancid
For sure.
Yeah, like, it doesn't feel like risky. It doesn't feel risky.
Scary about Rancid.
Yeah, it doesn't feel scary. Or like No Effects were scary to me at one point. They're just like, oh yeah, it's just No Effects. Fat Mike yelling about the government.
I always loved Punk in Drublic. I thought that was the coolest title.
Oh yeah,
for anything. Yeah.
Oh yeah, such a fun.
Yeah, it was so perfect.
That was probably the first thing I ever saw the joke of flipping the letters and making a nonsense race.
Totally. Yeah, it was so like amazing to me. And it was also being that it was pre-Twitter, when everyone is making a million little jokes a day, when stuff like that was more confined to song titles or album titles. Stuff like Fall Out Boy titles used to be like, oh, look at these cool little jokes. Now it's like you see a million of those types of jokes every hour,
Oh yeah. Like lots of people on Twitter, like their like pinned tweets are like rejected Fall Out Boy titles.
100%. Yeah.
So what was like, Like so you're like 4 years older than me, so that's like you would have been a freshman when I was a senior in high school. I kind of want to trace this a little bit. Where do you come from?
I grew up in the North Shore suburbs of Chicago, so Wilmette, Illinois. Yeah.
Wilmette, Illinois. Okay, I've talked to a few people from Chicago. They all say that if you live in the suburbs and say you're from Chicago, but you live in the suburbs, people who actually live in
People
Chicago,
are very mad.
They get real mad really quickly.
Yes, that's a big point of contention. So I always make sure to say I'm from the North Shore, from the suburbs.
So that area, I have this idea of it being like a very classic American childhood experience.
So where I'm from, it's totally John Hughes country. So literally, you can drive, 10-minute drive to the Home Alone house. Like
Nice.
everything, Breakfast Club, like is based on New Trier. Like everything, all the John Hughes America is basically where I grew up. So
Really?
it is kind of that perception. I think is accurate, where it's kind of that classic.
Yeah. And like the north compared to the south. So that would be like the nice suburban part of the city compared to the south, which I don't really know too much. The one time I've been to Chicago was to go to Chinatown and well, I was there to see the Gaslight Anthem, but I went into
nice.
Chinatown is in the south side, and Chicago's Chinatown has some great restaurants.
Well, it's so
Some great
embarrassing.
stuff there.
I have so rarely, I very rarely went to the South Side, which is very embarrassing. From a cultural perspective, I should have gone. And you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like I went to some Sox games, but it is like truly two different worlds in a way that is not good. But
Yeah, absolutely. Like I feel like Chicago, there's a real divide between like the north is like this and the south is like this.
totally.
It's like New Jersey in that way. Like northern New Jersey is viewed very specifically, and southern New Jersey viewed as very different.
So I never knew that, which is I feel like Chicago, that's more of a public thing. I never knew that about Jersey, that it was like that. That's funny. Mm-hmm. Like I wouldn't even know which is which if you didn't.
Yeah, like northern New Jersey, I think is considered the more like metropolitan because it's closer to cities and
Because like
such.
Jersey City and
and Atlantic City and of course New York is right here. And then you get into southern New Jersey and it gets very quaint. Like my future brother-in-law lives in southern New Jersey, and he has the street he's on. I was walking down it over the summer. It's just like, I mean, I'm from that, so it feels very comfortable and familiar. It's like, it's the kind of scene that you see in like movies.
Yeah.
So that's where so that's like kind of your environment growing up. What is your home life like? What did your folks do?
My dad is a lawyer, and my parents actually met in law school. So my mom practiced for a while, and then had 4 kids. So then she wasn't practicing. Now she works for the Archdiocese in Chicago, so for the Catholic Archdiocese.
Interesting. Do it as a lawyer?
No, she just works. She's like in charge of gifts.
Cool. And what kind of law did they practice?
My dad does like corporate law, like he would represent like corporate insurance law kind of stuff. So yeah, just I worked right when I got out of college. I worked at his law firm. And then, in a very funny twist, he left for a different law firm, and I didn't know what to do, so I just stayed. And everyone was like, "Why are you staying?" And I was like, "I don't know."
Right, you figure you would go if you're they figured you'd go if
well, they were like, yeah, everyone who works there was like, you're gonna stay? Okay. I just did for another like year. Yeah.
And what were you doing there?
I was in like the accounting department. I was doing like billing arguments, where they would bill someone and they would say this is too much money, and I would say actually it's not, even though I really had no dog in the fight. But yeah.
Oh yeah. I was a file clerk at a law firm for a while. It was very stressful for.
Oh yeah, working in a law firm is so miserable.
Yeah, just when an attorney like has like when an attorney has like a case or they have to be in court like the next day, and you're just furiously looking for some kind of motion or discovery or what have you.
It's so high stress.
Yeah. And it can, and there would be long periods of nothing, and then it would be like everything at once.
Yeah.
And then every attorney has like their own style. So there's like your like new with it attorneys. They're like, oh, put this on a thumb drive, and then they're like your old school attorneys. They're like print out all 16,000 pages of this legal document.
For sure. When I was in college, I worked. I had an internship actually with the ADA in Worcester. I went to school in Massachusetts, Worcester, Massachusetts. And I remember the first day they handed me this file I had to organize, and it was literally printed out cell phone pictures. I was just like leafing through like printed out cell phone pictures that were used as evidence in a murder case, and I was like, this is so weird. Like I'm unpaid intern. I should not be looking at this.
I know.
But you just get thrown into the fire with jobs like that immediately. I'm just like,
Oh yeah, and I especially think if you're like a creative person who's trying to like get by in like a big city where that's often very difficult, you are just kind of taking whatever, and you're kind of trying to bluff your way through interviews, and just like, I can totally do that, and then you're just furiously like, how do I do this?
Yep.
When they're not looking.
Yeah.
So you're one of four. Where in the chronology are you?
I'm second. So I have an older sister, younger brother.
Okay, so middle upper. Like,
yes, yeah, upper middle. Yeah,
okay, interesting. And how did you get along with your siblings? I'm an only child, so I have no idea.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I get along with them all really well. You know, to this day, my youngest brother, we have a big gap. He's 8 years younger than me, but you know, we're all close. And my older sister and my younger sister live together, so we're like a close family. You know, good, happy family. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. So not the kind of environment that most people would think that breeds a comedian.
Not at all. No,
Yeah.
they're kind of the exact opposite. And also, because you were talking about music, you know, when I was in high school, I played drums in a punk band, and it was truly like
cool.
looking back, it's like, what was I mad about? You know, like I don't know. You know.
Yeah, that is something with punk specifically. I'm thinking about this. It's cool that you play drums.
Yes, yeah, I play drums in a few bands. Yeah.
Excellent. I play guitar, and I'm playing bass in a band right now.
Nice. Yeah.
So you know, we could work on something if you need something. That's the thing. I've been thinking about this a lot because I just rewatched the movie SLC Punk for Gabe Pacheco's podcast.
Oh, nice.
And I like that movie. I still have a lot of fondness for that movie because punks are as closed-minded and hypocritical as the system and the people that they're rebelling against. And I think I saw SLC Punk early enough in my development as a punk rocker that I never went through that. I always had a healthy perspective on
For sure.
on the scene or the movement. And also my favorite band is Blink-182. And they never looked the part.
Yeah.
They just wrote songs and were themselves.
Yes, totally.
So that's the things I picked up from punk, which was, you know, the music's cool. So get into the music and don't stress about the image too much.
Yes, for sure.
Because it's all about being yourself.
Yeah. And I never, looked the part ever, for punky. And, within the band, I was always like the one who didn't look like should be in a punk band, but I loved it genuinely. I loved playing the music.
Oh yeah. Like punk drums is really fun. Those like pop, it is really fast or
you just get to really,
get fast go fast all the time. And I love punk bass.
And the time signatures are really easy too. You never have to do any.
And like bass lines can sound cool, but while being very, very simple.
Yeah.
Like you can get a good bass sound, and if you want to be super crazy, maybe throw in the fifth or like do a little riff on the pentatonic
and then
scale.
You sound like it's like, wow, this guy's
and it's like
incredible.
and then it's like Matt Freeman, Chris Dose from Anti-Flag, and you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what was your introduction to punk rock like? What were the bands for you?
So I was first really into grunge. I got really at like a young age, like 13. I became obsessed with grunge. Like I would wear Nirvana shirts every single day, to the point where it like became an issue. Where I would only wear shirts, picture of Kurt Cobain or Nirvana all the time, and it was just like, what is going on here?
Yeah, that's a good band for drums.
Oh yeah, Dave Grohl. I mean,
yeah.
And I'm really into Smashing Pumpkins and loved that they were a Chicago band. So I was obsessed with them for a while.
Yeah, they are like uniquely identified as a Chicago band.
Well, it's kind of weird because when you think of like iconic Chicago bands, it's kind of hard. You know what I mean?
I know. I think of the Smashing Pumpkins, the band Chicago.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the problem. The second one you say is the band Chicago, which is the second one I would say too.
Yeah, and then I think of Chicago blues. So maybe like Muddy Waters, but I'm not super well educated in blues. And then. And I think Laura Jane Grace lives in Chicago right now.
Oh man,
that's all I got.
That One Against Me record,
Transgender Dysphoria Blues.
I literally changed the way I thought about, just transgender, like everything about it. It really changed the way I thought. It was incredible. I think it's one of the most important albums that came out.
100%. Yeah, that record's incredible. I remember Mark Maron tweeting about how good that album was, and then I tweeted to him. And I tagged her and was like, she would be an amazing guest for WTF.
Yes, totally.
You have to get her on. And then she liked that, and then they started chatting, and then she
did that happen?
It happened.
Oh wow!
It was
I didn't listen to that. Yeah.
It's a great chat because I would imagine because Mark Maron, I think he's a very open-minded guy, but I feel like for that generation, the trans thing is a bigger mental jump
block.
for some people. So it was very much. They definitely covered that, and I think she gave it was that a classic great WTF kind of interview. So I would definitely listen to that. It's great, but yeah, Transgender Dysphoria is that record is amazing.
Yeah, it's something I think everyone should listen to once if you even like that kind of music a little bit. I think you'll love it. Yeah,
100%. And the Pumpkins. The thing about the Pumpkins, outside of the Chicago thing, and then being very proud of like Tonight has the city by the lake.
Yep. Oh yeah.
That line.
Believe me, even just hearing you say it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's that line. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like because they're one of a handful of bands that did a lot of very different sounding stuff,
Totally.
But it all kind of made sense. Like they could do the super fuzzed out heavy songs. They could do the like really spacey shoegazy songs. And then they could do the like really slow, pretty songs, and it all worked.
Yeah.
So I was really, so
It's kind of, and that's why it's such a bummer that he's gone so kind of off the deep end with like Alex Jones and that kind of stuff. Bill Corgan was on Alex Jones, and
really?
yeah, he went on there twice, and it's just like, I feel like they're going to be remembered as a punchline when they have so much great music, and it's just kind of a bummer to me.
Yeah, we got to keep giving the kids Melancholy and the Infinite Sense, or the greatest hits, like
Rotten Apples. It's a great system.
It's an amazing. It really covers all of the stuff. That's the way, because I really wished I could have I was like shouting at my computer listening to your episode with Stain, where I was like, I also agree that Aaron's political views are kind of make it a bummer to go back and listen to them. Break the cycle. But yeah, and his country stuff, I think, is not. They're Stain songs with pedal steel guitar.
Yeah, it does. I mean, his voice is so distinct too, and it's just like, I remember the first time seeing an Aaron Lewis. I saw a music video. I think I was in like a cab, and it was playing on the T-Cab TV, and I just remember like, is that the guy from Stained singing a country song? And it was just kind of a classic. I think one of the pro-military country songs where it's like, oh, that's okay. I didn't realize he'd gone this way, but yep.
Yeah. I really enjoyed that episode. And my favorite other thing about Aaron Lewis is he got mad at somebody for messing up the lyrics of the national anthem, singing the national anthem at a baseball game, and then he messed up the lyrics.
No way.
Singing at a baseball game.
That's perfect.
Yeah, wow. So it's like, but I like the guy can sing, and I do think Stain have some good songs. I feel like they dropped off a little bit, but I do think they have some good ones. So it was punk for you, the Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah, punk I was into like the most basic, like I was 14, 15 when I was playing in a punk band, so I went back to like, got really into the Clash, got really into the Ramones, that Sex Pistols album, just like all like truly 101 stuff.
Sure.
Just so I could like feel like I knew what they were talking about, because
of course
it was like me as a freshman in high school playing drums, and everyone else was a junior or a senior, and they were like the punk kids, so they really knew everything, and I was just trying to keep up. So I just kind of went to the basics. But
of course. You ever listen to Bad Religion and have to look up words in the lyrics?
I have listened to Bad Religion a little bit, yeah.
I've had to do that too. They were fun live. So early on, so when you were listening to all of this music, were you the creative kid in school, or were you like the? Because I was like with the theater crew. I was not running with like.
I was in the same place.
Yeah.
Yes, I did theater from a pretty young age. And I really loved it for a while, and I did theater and I did improv in like 7th grade. There was like an improv group called Traveling Troupe, and I think about this all the time because we perform in a Potbelly's sandwich shop, and I just think now, like, God, if I was just eating a sandwich and a bunch of 13-year-olds started doing improv in this room, I would be so upset.
Yeah,
like,
I'm at that age too, where
it's like, oh, please don't.
Yeah, like it's like, oh no, there's a microphone, we gotta run.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did theater. I did brief forays into trying to do like commercial acting. I was in 2 commercials.
Oh really? Which ones?
I was in a Cedar Point commercial.
Nice. I know Cedar Point.
Yes, which I put. It's on my Instagram somewhere. If you look through it, because my mom found it, which is very funny to watch. I was in a music video for a band called June, or maybe they're called Patrick, and the song was called June. One of those. But you can also find that online. They're just kind of a Taking Back Sunday style band. It's June. I think the band is June, and the song's Patrick, or it's exactly that flipped. But one of those
got it.
And then I have a tiny part in a little-known John Cusack movie called Grace is Gone, which is about his wife dying in Iraq, and I'm little boy playing Dance Dance Revolution at Dave & Buster's that his daughters walk up and watch do Dance Dance Revolution. Yeah, so I was really into acting, and then I don't know, I just stopped being into it. I was still playing in bands.
Wow, we have a lot of similarities.
Oh, yeah. And then when I went to college, I kind of stopped doing anything creative for a little bit, but I still love playing music, so I would play covers at a bar near our college, and like all my friends would come out, and that was a blast. And I think that's what gave me the performing bug again that led to me doing stand-up.
And where did you go to college?
Holy Cross in Massachusetts.
In Massachusetts.
Small Catholic school, yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, I liked your jokes about Catholicism on the album. So small Catholic school. So you kind of rediscover your love of performance.
Yes.
Doing those in
and I was
college.
I was just trying to be funny the whole time. You know what I mean? Like I was performing music, but the entire goal was to be funny. And I would go to music open mics right when I moved back after college to Chicago. I'd go to music open mics. And all I cared about was whether the jokes in between songs were getting a laugh. And then I was like, I'm just trying to do stand-up. And I love stand-up, too. So I kind of knew.
Did you like stand-up the whole time, or did that come late to you?
I always loved comedy. I got really into... I'm trying to think of like specials, like Zach Galifianakis's Live at Purple Onion I saw in college. And that was like a big one for me of like, oh, stand-up's not just, these
storytelling
exactly.
or like long form bits.
Totally.
Yeah.
And like that, and then like seeing stuff like What Had American Summer and Stella, just like that sense of humor resonated so much more with me than like a lot of mainstream comedy and what it was. And I just kind of realized like how much I loved more alt comedy, and
sure,
it just kind of led me to this path of like really loving it.
Oh yeah. And so what years was this?
Like 2010 to 2013 range is when I got really into when I started comedy. 2012, 2013.
Yeah. I started in 2007. So yeah, it was around that time. I think I was discovering like Patton Oswalt's second album had just come out. That was
Patton's the best.
Yeah, I love Patton. He makes me laugh so much. I had a great moment with him when he wrote his first book. He was doing a signing at Borders, and he had this story. And you ever read the book I Killed?
No, whose book is that?
It's a compilation of different stories of like really just hilariously awful and awkward. It's road stories, comedy stories, heckler stories, and Patton started at Baltimore, and his story is about hosting a like 6 comics for $6 show at the Baltimore Comedy Factory.
Yeah.
And some drunken guy wanted to propose to his girl, and he accosted Patton before the show, and Patton's up there hosting, and then the guy's like giving him eyes, and then it very becomes clear in the middle of this proposal that happens on stage that the girl is like not into it, and she was just kind of like doing that thing where you like look down and you're just like embarrassed.
That's
and then
so
she just
brutal.
goes, the answer's no, and she leaves, and then he has to continue hosting the show. So I actually had seen a couple get engaged on stage at the Baltimore Comedy Factory, so I told him that.
Oh wow, yeah.
And he was just like, oh, as soon as I said Baltimore Comedy Factory, he's like, oh my god. And I'm like, they didn't clean it since you were hosting there. When you and Blaine were coming up.
Yeah, that's hysterical.
So I loved Patton. Dimitri Martin really blew my mind.
Oh, totally.
When I first see him. His Comedy Central special, because I don't think I'd ever heard someone do like surreal one-liners before.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I'd heard like old school like Henny Youngman style one-liners. I think my whole concept of stand-up comedy was, and I'll tell him I'll tell him this if I ever see him. Jim David's Comedy Central presents. I think
that is. Yeah.
He was like
Not
one
the
of
creator
the
of Garfield.
No, a lot of people make that joke. He was like, I think very early on one of the first like out gay comics.
Oh, okay.
And I think he was probably the first gay person I ever heard talk about being gay.
Oh,
So
wow, yeah.
I watched his half Comedy Central presents. I remember seeing, and then my only other concepts at stand up very early on were Jeff Foxworthy and Bill Cosby himself.
Oh, wow.
So to me, stand up was a shtick, or it was like long form storytelling. And the first time I heard like absurd one liners, it was like a revelation. I was like,
Yeah.
I have weird thoughts like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe I could do that.
Yeah.
So it was like, did you? So Zach Galifianakis was early on. So, and then again, so I'm seeing like an early influence of the surreal.
Yeah, but there was that, and then it was kind of countered by also being really blown away by John Mulaney. I actually saw him. I saw him open for Penn in Chicago. I think it was maybe right around the time that the top part came out. Like he was not big at all yet, and just being like totally blown away. And then New in Town came out and became like my favorite special of all time. So it was kind of like some mix of those two things, like the Zach Galifianakis on one end and him on the other, and like just wanting to be somewhere in the middle of that kind of.
Yeah, Mulaney is just so like, just the way he talks is just like the language he uses is so hilarious. Because I've heard some people say like he uses words that like are not in the modern lexicon anymore.
Yeah.
So it kind of sounds hilarious just on its own. So this is like, and when did you start comedy again?
2012.
2012. Excellent. And then you started in Chicago?
I did, yes.
And
yeah.
I'm curious about that because I've never performed in Chicago, but I know Chicago is one of the great comedy cities.
Yes.
So I'm curious what the scene was like at the time that you were starting in Chicago.
I think I love Chicago as a comedy scene. I think I'm very happy I started there. I think it was like the best place to start. I kind of concurrently started doing stand-up and improv because I wasn't really, because I loved a lot of stuff and I wasn't really sure. So I took like 2 years worth of classes at Second City. I went through their whole program while I was starting stand-up kind of at the same time. And I really love both those scenes in Chicago. I think they're both great. I think stand-up just worked more for me.
Sure.
But there's so many great shows in Chicago still. And I mean, they've changed a little bit every time I go back, but still there's always just like amazing crowds there and just great shows. And the comedians are really fun. And yeah, I just think it's kind of the perfect place to start.
Yeah. And so the big shows in Chicago, I know like there's an improv, there's the Laugh Factory, and there's Zanies. So those are like the big clubs.
So Laugh Factory didn't opened during my time doing comedy though.
Okay.
So I was there a good amount, and that's awesome because it's a showcase club in Chicago, which there wasn't one before. Most of the New York clubs are showcase clubs.
Right, where a bunch of comics do like 10 minutes.
Exactly.
10 minutes, and you see a bunch of people compared to Zanies where you've got host feature
headliner. So way less opportunities. But Laugh Factory could put up so many more people because they'd be doing 2 or 3 shows a night, 5 or 6 spots a show plus a host. So there was just a lot more opportunity there. And it's a great room. It's really big, but they fill it up and it's awesome.
And does Chicago, I know comedians you should know, so is there still that healthy like I guess independent scene
yes
outside of the clubs?
Yeah, Comedians You Should Know is like the most well-known show. It's every Wednesday, and that I mean doing that for the first time, it's funny how big of a deal it is, but really like it feels like a coronation when you do it. Like I remember being so excited, like it meant so much to me to do it. And then there's the show I was a part of that I every time I go back I still do, which is Lincoln Lodge, which is now every Friday and Saturday. It used to be every Friday, but that's been going on for longer than Comedians You Should Know. It's actually been going on for like 10 or 15 years. It's where Kumail started and like all these TJ Miller, a lot of like Cameron Esposito, a lot of like bigger names in comedy were there first.
Sure.
And they're about to open their own venue, which is very exciting because they were always kind of in other people's spaces, and now they're gonna have their own building, which will be really cool.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah.
That's always a big step for a venue when you finally have your own space.
Exactly. Yeah. And they're gonna have a podcast studio and 2 different showrooms, so it'll be very exciting. Yeah.
Fantastic. Like little compounds.
Exactly.
I like building I like venues building this like little compounds. It's excellent because the same way that I think comedians we're all like branching out creatively. Like we've got your stand up, your writer, and in my case, you play, or our case, you play music. You got to do like a acting, the venues are also have like, well, we're also a bar, but we'll be a restaurant during the day, and then we'll have the podcast studio, and then we'll have the corner with the green screen.
Yep.
You just kind of have to like using all parts of the animal.
Yes, totally. Yeah.
In a way.
There was a moment right before I moved where I got a little nervous, and I was like, because Lincoln Lodge in Chicago was such like a part of like my identity there. I was like, this is my home place. This is, where I'm always performing. And I asked the guy, Mark Geary, who's been there, for all 15 years, or whatever. I was like, Mark, is there anything like this in New York that I can do? And he's like, no. I was like, okay. I was like, oh no, there's not going to be a place like that. Which some people find in New York with different clubs, but I personally have been more, roving around to different places. Like Union Hall is the closest thing to that, but it's not like that,
Yeah.
It's not a collective, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've still never I've gone to shows at Union Hall, but I've still never performed there. I think when that'll be my one of my coronation moments. I feel I haven't done lots of the classic New York comedian things that you're supposed to do. Like I book my own shows, and I can do an hour of my storytelling show. I can do a half hour of stand up, but I've never done Keith and the Girl. I've never done Caroline's or Union Hall. I'll feel like I'm really a comedian like when I do one of these things. It's so and I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like there's two schools of thought. I think of like there these check marks that you want to do, and like these make you a comic. Like you do late night, or you get in at these venues in these cities, or you do corporates, or you do cruise, like those kind of you get a special album, like those kind of check marks. But then there's like those folks that like are on the road all the time, who don't have like a huge national like presence, but they're just constantly working and killing it. I'm like, if I emailed the people that they work with, they'd tell me I have to bring 10 people.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's so weird, and it's also a lot of this stuff that we, put on ourselves, and these kind of arbitrary things that we decide are important, they're not. And then it's also the second you do it, it's just, all right, what's the next thing? You know what I mean? You never get that sense that you're looking for,
Exactly.
Like I remember, I really wanted to do a breakout at Caroline's. I did it. It went great. And then the next day I was like, oh yeah, well,
sign up for March Madness.
In exactly the same spot I was before. So but it's just, you just have to like create it for yourself. And
that's what I'm trying to do, is create my own opportunities.
Yeah.
Or I think of like, have you ever met Gary Owens? I've never met him, but do you know who that is?
Oh, you know what? I know who that is, but I've never met him either. No.
Okay. So he's not in at the store, but it's all good. When Momo Puget did, I had my fiance ordered delivery, and I answered the door in the middle of the thing.
Oh, nice.
So Gary Owens, like, I don't think he, if I'm remembering correctly from what interviews I've heard him in, I don't think he like does the Comedy Store like when he's in LA. I don't even think I think he lives in like a more suburban part of California.
Yeah.
But he like is on the road constantly, has the Showtime special every couple of years, and sells out, and people love him. And that's the dream ultimately we're all trying to get, I would think.
Yeah.
Is I think, and I've heard someone else say this, but if there was like a magic piece of paper I could sign that would guarantee that there's a full house in every show I headline, I would sign that paper immediately.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I would give away my soul. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's half the stress. And I talk about, and I'm sure you might know this from like the DIY community and punk rock. Mm-hmm. So much of the stress of doing it yourself is just the sweating of like, oh, are people going to show up in this room?
I think that's it's the hardest part. My mom was just in town for my album release show. She's like, yeah, it must be hard to worry about like your performance, and if you can get enough people in the room. Like, I'm not even worried about the performance. Like, I'm not thinking about that at all. All I'm thinking about is will people be there? And I don't even have time to think about what jokes I want to do because I'm so stressed about whether or not there'll be people in the room. It's like the actual art of it is the second thing on my mind, which is not good. But
yeah, I think about the set list like because I've done like 20-minute like sets with friends at the Pit, and I think about the set while the other person's on stage.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not until right before then I'm like, oh yeah, I also have to do the thing I care about.
Yeah,
not just the production stuff I don't really want to do, but you have to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
you're in Chicago, like you're building the foundation. How long are you in Chicago for?
For comedy, I did comedy there for 3.5 years. And my kind of thinking on it was, I know no matter what, I still have to get a lot better. And I also know that when I move, I'm going to have to start over and meet everyone and do all that stuff. So I'm like, why don't I just move too early? Just because some people kind of stay in Chicago forever and they just become the people who are in Chicago forever. And I didn't want to do that, even though I love Chicago.
Right.
I think if I wasn't doing comedy, I would just live there forever.
Sure.
But I just knew that I wanted to go to New York. And I was like, I should just go early. And I know I'm going to have to meet everyone and do all that. So why don't I just do that now while I'm still trying to become a comedian, you know?
Yeah, that's what I did too. I moved, I think I was 2.5 years in when I got to New York. And
so you were in Baltimore, DC, or?
Yeah, I was in Baltimore. So I started in 2007. So that's my the fall of my senior year of college.
Nice, yeah.
I think I must have 22, 23, something like that.
Yeah.
And I would do, every Sunday I would do Drink Till We're Funny, which was originally at a Damon's Bar and Grill in Hunt Valley. This is all in the suburbs. And then and then eventually it moved to High Top's Backstage Bar and Grill. So I would do that every Sunday. I would do like the new talent 5-person bringer at Magooby's Joke House every now and then.
Yeah. I've never been there, but I've heard about it. Yeah.
It's a great club.
Yeah.
It's it was a great club in its old space. It's a better club in its new space.
Nice.
It's very cool to me to see big names
Seems
go
like
through
they
there.
get good headliners, yeah.
They get great headliners, and like you know, like they get like our peers, like the comics who are a few steps above us. I like seeing that too.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. But so I would do those on occasion, and then maybe get like an MC weekend, like every like few months or something like that. Occasionally, I would get spots. I would get spots at the Comedy Factory if I knew the headliner, like through friends, and then we would go to DC sometimes and do like the open mics. That's where I met Eli Sayers.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I love Eli.
Was driving down to DC with friends, and I think eventually I had decided on New York, but I was like asking for advice. Like this was when like Rory Scovel would come through.
Yeah. His first album, Dilation, was a huge influence for me also. I love that album.
Oh yeah, he's
and it's funny because he doesn't love it. I remember I talked about it once. I think he like doesn't think of it as that good. I'm like, that album is incredible. Yeah.
Oh yeah, well we're all so tough on ourselves. It's hard to be objective about stuff. That's why like when my band just recorded a demo, so I was like, and so the other band members were like, we shouldn't put out this song, and I was like, I'll send this to my friends, and they're all like, dude, this is great.
Yes, yeah,
this is really good.
It's so hard to just get out of your own head and
100%. I'm trying to be a little bit better about forgiving myself, and like and part of it is that I'm not solely reliant on advancement in my stand-up career for happiness.
Totally.
That's an important realization to have.
Yeah.
Sooner rather than later, I think.
For sure. I recorded when I was in high school. I had like a 8-track recorder, and I would just sit in my basement, and I would play every instrument. I would play drums, bass, guitar, and I would sing. And I recorded like hundreds of songs. And I lost all of them. I wish I had them so badly, but I'm sure they are really bad. But it's just so funny that I spent like so many hours making this stuff and never showed a single person.
Yeah.
All this original music that I'm sure is terrible, but it's just funny to do that. You know, it's kind of, I don't know.
That would be a great episode of your podcast.
Oh, if I could find it, I would love that.
That'd be amazing. Yeah. I still have my high school band's demo, which sounds good, but I was a terrible lyricist at the time.
Oh, you were a frontman. Nice.
Yeah. We would. Well, my friends sang, and I wrote lyrics because I didn't have confidence to sing. Yeah. But it's just really self-pitying, self-aggrandizing.
I think anyone
emo stuff
at that age, mine was definitely self-pitying also. But I think they always are. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting thing, because I was thinking about this in relation to nu metal specifically. I know this is a weird about face, but I feel like you're the guy to talk to about it. I feel like nu metal was shit on pretty heavily.
Yes.
And my theory on this is I have two reasons, because it wasn't called butt rock or red state rock back then, but I hear that phrase a lot. I
hear butt rock a lot now, and I'd never heard that till very recently.
Yeah. So my theory behind why nu metal was I think two things happened. I think because the riffs were simple and the emotion being expressed was anger.
A lot of anger. Yeah.
I think it got written off by a lot of people of the what are you so mad about?
Yeah.
Kind of reaction.
Mm-hmm.
And then my second theory is that when the war in Iraq started, it became pretty common knowledge that soldiers in tanks would blast bodies by drowning pool.
Yeah.
While on patrol, blowing stuff up. So I feel like that style of metal got associated with like the pro-military, like Republican kind of crowd. Like I don't think there are any woke metal bands.
No, not that I can think of.
that I can think of. And then Five Finger, like the whole Five Finger Death Punch kind of crowd. Like that was the start of that. Do you have any thoughts on that specific style of metal, like that early 2000s, like bounce riff?
You know
kind
what?
of
It's
stuff?
funny because we just did when my podcast Embedded, we do live shows. We do them tournament style where 8 different comedians each have a band they're representing, and we just had one where Linkin Park won the whole thing. I thought it was so funny. I'm like, oh yeah, people do secretly love Linkin Park, and
Oh, yeah.
and I remember when I was that age, I loved System of a Down like very with my whole heart, sincerely, and stuff like that. And I think that it's just something that people. Yeah, decided, and it is all anger, but I think people decided they're ashamed of it when really a lot of that stuff is really fun, and it is tapping into something that should be tapped into every once in a while.
I think so. And those bands in particular, I feel like they have enough depth to their music where their songs are a little bit more timeless. I feel the same way about My Chemical Romance.
Oh, I was so into them.
I really was too. I saw them on every single tour. I used to have a My Chemical Romance hoodie from the 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge era.
Oh, yeah.
That had a big circle of handguns on the back. And
that you could not do now.
I could not do that.
Yeah.
I could not do that now, but like I would have managers ask me about it. And it's like, oh, it's a band. I'm very happy. And I'm very happy with everybody here. But I think the Black Parade specifically, like they drew on enough of the classic rock influences to not just sound like derivative.
Yeah, my girlfriend, our first date, she told me that she'd written "Welcome to the Black Parade" fan fiction, and that was when I was like, "Oh well, I want to keep talking to you."
Marry that girl.
I know. Yeah, exactly.
You can register at Hot Topic because Hot Topic is like classy now. Once they changed their logo, they got.
Is it? I haven't been to one in 10 years. Yeah.
Yeah, well, when I travel, I go to the mall and I always go by it. It used to be the like whole like scary looking font and like the kind of like goth den.
Yeah,
but it's not like
black and
that
red,
anymore. Yeah, and now they changed the logo and it's a little bit classier.
Oh, I didn't
looking.
realize. I'll have to check one out.
Yeah. So 2012 is when you get to New York. This is something.
2015.
2015.
Yeah, 2012 I started comedy. 2015 I go to New York. Yeah.
Gotcha. And so so you're about 4 years in, and your first album came out, which I think is very impressive.
Oh yeah, thank you.
So this is something this is something I'm always curious about. Like, do you feel like you're do you do like lots of club stuff, or are you more like do more of the alt
I try
shows?
to do everything.
Kind of do both, yeah.
Yeah, I try to do both. I end up in New York getting booked on leaning more alt. I think that's more who I hang out with too, and I think that's part of it.
Sure.
Because I think a lot of the club stuff in New York, you kind of have to hang out at the club.
Yeah,
which is I have a hard time doing if I'm not performing. You know.
I do too. I feel awkward. I've done it before, and I'm really bad at starting conversation. No one, unless I know somebody there, it gets weird.
Totally.
super fast.
Yeah.
You kind of strike me as the like. There are lots of comics I know that I describe as pleasant Midwestern. And you're definitely in that crew.
Happy to be in that
crew.
that umbrella. Yeah.
So when you get here, and so you just start like hitting like 3 to 4 mics every night.
I was 100% hit the ground running, just all mics first couple of years, and just meeting everyone, being out, try and do 2 mics and go hang out at a show every night was always the goal for at least the first couple of years. And then I got a little worse about doing mics once I started doing more shows, and just kind of got it just becomes harder to. Sometimes the mics feel like diminishing returns, and
I hit a certain point. I hit a certain point with that too, where I didn't think it stopped helping me, so I had to think of a different way to be productive.
Exactly. Sometimes it's making you hate the jokes that actually would do well in front of a real audience, because you're only performing it to comedians who are sitting through their own 3 mics that night. So it's just
exactly.
And there obviously is a lot of good in doing open mics, especially when you're new to a place or just new to comedy. It's like very useful. But
well, it just getting used to being in front of people and holding the microphone.
Yes,
I think is a big part of it. Like, you need to have that comfort so that you can like work on the jokes, like the combination of words leading up to the punchline.
100%. Yeah. Also, I think in Chicago the mics were all 4 or 5 minutes, and here they're mostly 2 minutes, which I think is actually very good.
Yeah.
It was good for me. It just made my writing tighter, and I think there is something very good about that. That I'm happy, at least for my first few years here. I think that really helped me.
I think so. It's important to, in New York especially, like there's that sort of, I feel like other scenes are a little bit more indulgent of in experimentation, or you get more leash. And I feel like the storytelling community, I don't know if you do like storytelling shows ever.
I never really do now.
They give you more leash too, and you're always, you don't have to be driving towards a laugh. Like New York clubs, I'm always like, let me get to the laughs as quickly as possible.
Laugh, right away for anyone to pay attention.
100
feet to the fire. Yeah,
100%. Whereas the storytelling shows that you can take them on a journey and like be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes it feels like club comedy in New York being vulnerable could be disastrous.
Yes, for sure. Which is why I love the new Gary Goldman special so much, because he is a club comedian, by trade, but his special is incredibly vulnerable, and I think it's one of my favorite specials I've ever seen. It's really great Depression. If you haven't seen it yet on HBO,
I've started it, but I haven't finished it yet because it's I have to be in the right frame of mind.
Yeah.
It's the same reason I haven't watched Nanette yet. It's like I've heard too much about it. I've heard too much fighting, so I have to let all that cool down, be in the right frame of mind to be able to
without
appreciate
the baggage.
it. Exactly.
That happens to me with movies sometimes, where the Twitter discourse about a movie is so much, so I'm like, I can't see this with a clear mind at all, so I should just wait.
Oh yeah, exactly. And the other thing I love about Gary Goldman is that I feel like they're and I'm going to be try to be abstract because I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but I feel like there are these very clear camps that people are aligning with politically, whereas there's the left comedians crowd, and then there's the fuck the anti-PC culture kind of crowd, and I've just always wanted to be the Gandhi of the New York stand scene. I just want to go amongst. I want to be able to do everything and get along with all people. And I like Gary because it's just great observational jokes. And then he also has that very personal show that's still very funny.
Totally.
So
yeah, it's important to me too. Yeah. Where I just want everyone to think it's funny is the main goal, but
yeah, totally. So this is something I want to ask about as well. And if you can't answer any of this, I'm curious about how your album is with ASpecialThing Records.
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent. I was curious if you could take me through not only when did you feel like you were ready to record an album, and take me through some of the preparation and the business side of that release.
For ssure. So they were always kind of my dream record label, just because I really love, some Patton's albums are on there. That's Paul F. Tompkins, one of my favorite comedians, and Andy Daly's album, Nine Sweaters, which I think is one of the funniest comedy albums ever, is on A Special Thing. So they were always kind of in my mind as something, someday I want to put out an album with A Special Thing. And the way it kind of came together was I was already at that point where I had been thinking about doing an album. I had done 45 minutes of stand-up, and I knew and I came up with this idea to kind of have music. So my album ended up being 40 minutes of stand-up, 20 minutes of music. I kind of had that blueprint in my head.
Yeah.
And then I opened for my friend Megan Gailey when she recorded her album for A Special Thing. And
yeah, I remember Megan. I haven't seen her in a while, but she's great.
I'm going to her wedding this weekend.
Oh,
yeah,
fantastic.
Which will be great. But so I opened for her when she recorded her album with them, and Ryan from AST was there to record it. And, you know, I kind of had in my head, I was like, you know what, this guy's here. This is my dream to do an album on this label. So I kind of made this decision where I was like, I'm doing 25 minutes for each show to do enough different material to kind of show that I have an hour's worth of material. You know what I mean? So I kind of did that intentionally. Just like, I'm going to do a lot of different material on each show, just kind of show my range and like really bring it and hope I do really well. And the shows both went great, obviously because of Megan. You know, she has amazing people that were there to see her, but it did really well. And then after, you know, I just went out with Ryan. We were talking about, he's like, oh, have you ever thought about doing an album? I'm like, oh, that's funny you mentioned that because when secretly I wanted it so bad. I'm like, totally. I never thought about it, but like I really wanted it so bad. So then, you know, I emailed with him a few times after, and we just set it up from there. And once I knew I was doing it, I, you know, just set up as many shows as I could in different cities. Like I went to Manchester, New Hampshire, and did 45 minutes there. I did an hour in Boston. I did half an hour in Philly. I did an hour in Chicago. You know, just anywhere I could do a long set, I did. Yeah. And just as many as I could. And then I recorded it at Union Hall, and I had a great time. I did two shows. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you do the two shows, and is the final product like a combination of the two shows?
So the final product is like 98% the first show. So the first show like went so well. It was like totally packed. And I had a friend playing drums on the album because I'm playing piano, and my friend Brad Austin played drums. And we only got to practice it one time before, so I was like really nervous about that. I was like, man, if we have two chances to get this right, and it's going to be on the album forever, so I really hope. And he knocks it out of the park, and like thank God. But so the first show went so well, and right after Ryan from ASpecialThing goes with me, goes, whatever happens on the second show, we got it. So that was like an awesome weight off my chest for the second one. The second one, it was just kind of looser, and it was really fun, but I just kind of knew in the back of my head, I was like, we already have it. So there was only one bit I said wrong in the first recording, so I just made sure like I nailed that on the second one. We brought that in from the second one in the notes, but other than that, it's almost basically just one show straight through.
Excellent.
Yeah,
that's awesome, man. And when you do a record deal for comedy, is it just for the one album? One is other people might have different experiences, but this was just the one. I mean, I would hope to do another one with them someday because I had a good experience and they're really nice to work with. Cool.
But yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, like them. I feel like ASpecialThing and what was the Stand Up Records was another like. I'm glad that they are continuing to do stuff because I've been. I feel like it's always kind of weird when like comedians like, you know, age out of the album and then they're just doing the specials because the audio version of the special is not quite the same to me.
Yes, for sure.
So I still have a fondness for the audio only CD. Like Skinks for the Memories is still just such a great time listening. One of the best
things ever with one of the worst names ever. But
I know.
I wish it wasn't called that, but it is truly perfect. Jimmy Pardo's albums, I feel the same way about. They're so great. And he's never done a special. He only has the two albums, and you know, it's assorted late night stuff. But those albums are so fun. And, I think there is, especially just because I listen to so much music and I watch so little music videos and live performances. I'm like something about the audio format I feel like is more attuned to my life, anyways.
Sure. And then how does the podcast with Tom start?
So Tom and I had been doing. Tom had a podcast called Girls Night with Tom Takar that was. It was just more of almost like Comedy Bang Bang style, or it's kind of people doing characters and just kind of mess around stuff. And Tom and I became friends one weekend when he moved to Chicago. And there was a weekend where I was hosting at a club and he was featuring. Yeah. And we became friends like right away. Cool. And I started co-hosting that show. And then we loved doing it. I honestly think, I think they're still on iTunes, but they're really funny, but just no one listened to it. Basically, literally no one. And at a certain point, it was just kind of like, I don't know why we're doing this. And then Tom came up with the idea to do this other format because it was when Coldplay did the halftime show at the Super Bowl, and everyone was just shitting on Coldplay mercilessly. And Tom was like, "I actually really like Coldplay, and I wish there was a format where I could talk about this." And I actually also loved Coldplay in college. I was really into Coldplay, but. So he came up with this idea where you'd have a different comedian come on each episode and just talk about a band they like that gets made fun of, and we just started doing it, and immediately it was just so fun right away, and we got way more people to listen than we ever did with the show. Like immediately with the other show.
Yeah, your show's like pretty popular from
and
what
now,
I've
it has gotten pretty popular, which is awesome. I mean, the coolest thing is when I do a stand up show on the road and someone comes up and says that they listen to the podcast. It's like embarrassing how excited I am by that,
Yeah, I get excited by that too.
Yeah,
I really I hope to have that someday. Like
Totally.
I've had this year has been like the first year where I've gotten to like have some like crazy guests I never thought I would ever accomplish. So that's really cool when you see people like, oh, cuz like you said, I feel like it's so easy to make fun of podcasting by other.
Of course, yeah.
But when it's good and you enjoy it, and there's something to show for it, that's very, very cool.
Totally. Yeah, we just did a little mini live tour of the podcast where we did Chicago, Bloomington, where Tom's from, and then Cincinnati, Ohio. We did 3 shows, and they were all packed. They were all like so fun. It was just like we were both talking after, like that was one of the most fun weeks we've had in comedy. Just like,
did you do the Comedy Attic?
We did, yes.
Yeah, I've heard great things about that place.
The Attic is amazing. So we did Friday night, we did the podcast, and Saturday night we each just co-headlined, did like 25 minutes of stand-up, and it was just like the best weekend, yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. What is, if you were going to be a guest on your show, what band would you defend?
So we did do one where I was the guest to talk specifically about the Taylor Swift album Lover because it had just come out, and I wanted to sing its praises because I was such a big fan of it. But I think there's so many I like. I really think I could talk about the Fall Out Boy album "Take This to Your Grave" for 2 hours. I just love that so much, and it was such a big part of my life at that time. And like all the Panic at the Disco, My Chemical Romance, I was so into that. Saves the Day, Through Being Cool was like incredibly important to me. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then a lot of time, we just did Counting Crows for the second time, and like I could talk about them. I realized I listened to the first episode where we talked about them, and I said they were the most important band in my life, which I was like, oh God, I don't remember saying that, but it is kind of true. And just like I just love a lot of embarrassing music, and I love some cool music, and yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing is, it's not embarrassing if it means something to you.
Totally.
And if you were into something. And then you look back on it like, oh, why did I never like this? It's because you evolved, and that's cool.
Yeah.
It's the same way, like, you can listen to comedians' perspectives on subjects change from album to album.
Yeah.
I feel like, looking through your musical phases is a very interesting kind of self-reflection.
Totally.
That I find like, like 100%. And it's always cool to like, go look back on that stuff and go, oh yeah, I remember. I remember, like I still have a fondness for the song "Fade" by Stain, just because it's fresh in my mind. Like, or "Epiphany," which is the comment you guys read, where I was like, that song I think still holds up.
Yeah.
Even though Aaron Lewis wasn't the greatest lyricist, he has good range, and
for sure.
And that I learned a lot about guitar by learning that song.
Yeah,
because it's in an unusual tuning.
I'm always like blown away at people who write in different tunings, because I even like going to drop D was always like, ugh.
I know. Or have you done Dashboard Confessional yet?
No,
Okay.
I definitely, I mean, I love some Hands Down, Vindicated. Like I love those songs.
Screaming Infidelities. That's in a really odd tuning.
Is it?
Also,
Yeah.
it's in an interesting open tuning. I can't even remember what it's
like
called.
Daughter by Pearl Jam's in a really weird tuning. Yeah.
Yeah. Are there bands that you haven't covered yet that you want to cover on the show?
There must be a bunch. I mean, we still haven't done Nickelback, which is kind of our white whale.
Yeah,
like
there's a lot of baggage with Nickelback.
I know. Trying to think who we haven't talked about.
I normally would never pressure you like this, but if you are thinking about Blink-182, I'm your guy for that.
Oh yeah. We did do one episode about them, but we only covered "Damn It" pretty much. so we haven't talked about Enema of the State or anything. Or I think we did Dude Ranch and I forget. Yeah, but we kind of only did Early Blink-182.
They're like skate punk era.
Exactly. Yeah, we haven't talked about.
Yeah, because there's a couple of different eras of. There's a couple of different eras of Blink. There's like Enema and like and Enema and Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. That's like their like classic like early 2000s pop punk.
Most popular probably.
Yeah. And then the Untitled album, that's a whole different animal onto its own. And then you have the Post, and then you have like DeLong, the reunited with Tom, and then you have the Post Tom with Skiba now. It's really.
Do you still follow them?
Really
closely. Oh yeah.
I woke up at 4 a.m. this summer to see them play on Good Morning America.
Oh wow! So you really?
I'm a really big fan. I have Mark Hoppus's signature bass in the back room.
His bass sound was something that I could never figure out how to do, and I always thought it sounded so cool.
I like his
rolling
bass sound.
Yeah, I always loved it and could never figure, because I played bass in a band for a while in high school also, and I could never figure out how to do it. And I always thought it sounded so good.
Can I tell you some of the things that I figured out. So he used Ampeg amps, which is a classic punk rock amp sound.
Okay.
His signature model bass is a jazz bass body, but it has precision bass pickups that are flipped.
Oh, interesting.
So you get a brighter mid-range sound on your lower strings.
Yeah.
Then you get a thicker bassier sound on your low strings.
Interesting.
So that's his signature model sound. And then he also was using P basses before that.
Okay.
So because I agree with you. When I think of like a punk rock bass tone, I think of Mark Hoppus.
Totally. Yeah.
Oh, if I ever got to interview him, I would die. I tweeted to him last week.
Oh yeah.
So still waiting to hear from you, Mark. But yeah, if you ever wanted to cover Blink extensively, I know a lot about their entire career.
For sure.
And I also loved. I interviewed Tim from the band Alistair this year.
Oh, nice.
Do you remember? They're another Chicago band. They've put out a couple records since they were touring extensively, and they're still big in Japan, which I love.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Like I would love to be. I don't know how I'll accomplish this, but I would love to be the first English-speaking comedian that's huge in Japan.
Well, did you see Searching for Sugarman?
No,
Sugarman.
What's that?
It's this great documentary about this musician whose name I'll forget, who is like incredibly famous. I can't remember the.
Keep talking. I'm gonna look it up.
It's this amazing documentary about this guy who just never really got his due in America, and then he found out that he was really famous in this other country, and he went and performed there, and he performed like a stadium. This guy who like wasn't even able to perform shows in the U.S. anymore. It's really incredible.
Rodriguez.
Yes, Rodriguez, and his music's really good too. It's one of my favorite documentaries.
Oh, that's cool. I'm gonna make sure. I'm gonna add that to my watch list.
Yeah, I think you'll love it.
That's so cool. And this is a nice something I like to close out on. What is something you want to make creatively that you haven't yet?
Oh man,
because I know your album just came out, so we're probably now in the like got to rebuild the act stage.
Next? Yeah. I have this idea that I really want to do that I hope I can do, which is you know how like kind of more pretentious indie bands sometimes for their second album they go to the woods to record it.
Sure.
I think it would be really funny to try and do that as a comedian. So that's like this harebrained scheme I have.
Like to bring an audience into the woods?
So I go to the woods for like a month to write it and then bring an audience to the woods and record it. So I don't know if I'll actually do it, but that's like my dream.
Oh, dude, there is a mockumentary that is dying to be made as part of this process.
Yes, yeah.
Like we could just cut to you, like furiously, like at the typewriter. You know what that reminds me of? The actor Spalding Gray. One of his monologues was about trying to finish a book he was writing about his mother's suicide, and he talks about being on at a writer's retreat in upstate New York.
Yeah.
So this is what I think the plan is. We get a cabin. Maybe Christian Finnegan and his wife and his wife would oh my God, Carrie would let you use their cabin.
Do they have a cabin? Oh,
yeah. He's got bits about it. So maybe.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I say we get you up there. You just write jokes for the summer. I don't know how you're testing them out. Maybe you're just testing them out on the guy at the convenient at the general
I
store.
go to the general store.
Yeah, and you're just like, I need my provisions, and if I could just run a few premises by you. It's like, what is the deal with poison berries? Why do they exist? You think there's anything to that? No? Okay. What is the deal with New Yorkers coming upstate to look at leaves? They have leaves in New York, surely. Anything there? Anything there?
And he's just staring at me blankly.
Yeah. And he's like that classic, like, "No, you're not around from these parts." Like general store order for like the guy who's like clearly going to kill you with a hatchet later.
100%. Yeah.
And then I don't know how we get and then I feel like there's a journey to be made of the audience that comes.
Yes.
Like everyone gets in the van and they're just like, oh, I don't know what this is going to be. That would be an interesting technical challenge. How to mic up now, would you record it like in a cabin at a place, or would you just like record it around a fire?
Oh, either of those is great. And honestly, fire would be great because the one new like longer bit I do have is that I was at a wedding in a lake this summer and I did fall into the bonfire.
Oh, was that Chris Calagero's wedding a chance?
No, it was a non-comedian wedding.
Oh, non-comedian wedding. Here I'm going to pitch this idea to you.
Yeah.
I got ideas now because, I've enjoyed this conversation very much.
Yeah,
so
me too.
I got ideas. So Harlan Williams, he has that special where
In
he's
the
just
desert,
ranting to himself in the desert. You can have the first campfire stand-up special. Like they have campfire songs and campfire punk rock.
I'll have a guitar. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you have somebody playing like just some cowboy chords in the back, and then you're just walking around a fire telling jokes, completely uninterrupted. We just follow, like it just continuously goes around in a circle. I think you would be the first person to do that. I might have completely blown up our opportunity by saying this on.
Oh yeah, don't put this
record.
out.
Well, dude, this has been great. And where can people find your stuff if they want to check out your stuff?
Look at my album. It's on iTunes. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Music. My name's Tommy McNamara, and the album is called Who's Tommy. So check that out. My podcast is Stand By Your Band. And check either of those out. I love that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man. This has been a great chat. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me.
Dude, it's truly my pleasure.
Fantastic. And hopefully we'll work on some stuff.
I love it. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, folks, that's our show for the week. Thank you so much for listening. That was a truly delightful conversation with Tommy McNamara. I was really glad to get to share that conversation. It was great chatting about music and lots of stuff I don't get to talk about a lot, but when I do, I get very excited. And no one is allowed to take that idea we had for Tommy's new special that is trademarked, copywritten, December 2019. And I would love to see that special come to life. So thank you guys so much for listening. I also want to give a shout out to my supporter on Patreon at the awesome producer level, Mary Beth Mooney. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. If you guys want to check out my Patreon, it is patreon.com/awesomedisaster. I have a lot of stuff that unique things that I post there that I do not post anywhere else. And I also give exclusive access to lots of my old music and demos that I have coming out. And lots of and cool things that I push myself to make really special for supporters over on that channel. So thank you guys so much for listening. If you enjoyed this show and you think you might know somebody else who might dig what I'm putting out here, we are available wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to us on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple. You can leave us a review on Apple. That helps other people discover the show and just letting people know that the show exists. I appreciate it very much, you guys, and I hope you're having a great day or night wherever you are, and be well, and I will see you guys next week between awesome and disaster. Take care, everybody.